And then I'm quickly going to introduce myself. I'm Isabel Min with PlaceWorks. We're assisting California State Parks with the meeting this evening. And we'll turn it over to my colleague Janet for some logistics information.
Isabel, can we go to the next slide, please? So during this presentation, you will be able to ask any questions, and you can send those questions to a staff member here named Project Questions, and I'll go through a few slides on how you can do that. And then similarly, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, feel free to send a chat message to number 2, tech support. Next slide. So how you would do that is that you would send a message through Zoom's chat function. In the toolbar on the bottom of your screen, there's a chat bubble icon that you would click, and you would choose 1 project questions or 2 tech support in that little drop-down menu with the arrow pointing down, and you can type your message right in that box that says type message here. And we will be monitoring those and recording those, and hope to answer as many questions as we can during the Q&A period. Next slide. And if you're using a smartphone and tablet, you can also access this feature. You would just need to look at the top of your screen and click the 3 dots and select chat, and select project questions as the person you want to talk to. Next slide. I will turn this back over to Isabel.
Great. Thank you, Janet. I'm just going to give a very quick overview of our agenda for the evening. We're going to have a State Parks give a welcome and do introductions of the team. We're going to go into a presentation giving a little background and context for tonight's meeting. And then the bulk of the presentation will be doing a brief review of the plan, the draft plan, which has been posted on the website. We know that some of you have had a chance to review it. We're going to be going over the main recommendations that are in the plan, the draft plan, the area recommendations, and the change in use recommendations. Then we will have a feedback session. So that will include spoken comments and Q&A. We'll explain how to provide feedback both tonight in the meeting as well as after tonight's meeting during the draft plan review period. And then we will have conclusions and next steps. And then just we're going to take the spoken comments. So if you've registered to speak, we will do that prior to doing the Q&A, because we want to allow for a good amount of time to hear from everyone who is here to provide comments tonight. And again, on the right, you can see the reminders on providing questions, sending in project questions, and asking questions of tech support. And we'll do our best to answer the questions, but if we don't get to all of them this evening, we will do a follow-up as we have done in previous meetings, documenting the questions and providing answers on the project website. And with that, I will turn it over to Rich Preston with California State Parks.
Good evening, everybody.
Oh, Rich, you're on mute.
All right, let's try this again. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Richard Preston LeMay. I'm the Folsom Sector Superintendent for California State Parks. I appreciate you all taking the time from your busy schedules this evening to join us and provide input on the Folsom Lake State Recreation Area and the Folsom Powerhouse State Historic Roads and Trails Management Plan. Your input is critical to the development of this plan, and we're looking forward to receiving your comments and questions. The next slide, please. I wanted to take just a moment to introduce the remaining State Park and PlaceWorks staff that are in attendance tonight. From the State Park Strategic Planning and Recreation Services Division, we have Alex Stell, the chief of that division. We also have Jason Spann, an associate landscape architect, and Noel Rittenbach, associate park and recreation specialist. From our Goldfields district office, we have Jim Michaels, our senior park and recreation specialist, Eric Taylor, a park and recreation specialist, Steve Hilton, our cultural resource program manager, and Devin Swartwood, our state park interpreter too. And unfortunately, Barry Smith, our district superintendent, had another engagement tonight and is unable to join us. Joining us from our PlaceWorks team is Isabel Min, who just introduced herself, Janet Chang, Spence Kohler, and Giselle Vandrick. PlaceWorks is a planning consultant that has been retained to assist state parks with facilitating public engagement and our public meetings, pull together the environmental compliance documents, and assist with writing and organizing the plan. PlaceWorks does not have any planning or environmental compliance decision-making authority. California State Parks is the decision-making authority and responsible for all planning and environmental determinations. Reclamation will be the decision-making authority for all NEPA compliance issues. Next, Isabel is going to lead an activity to allow you to tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Great. So we're going to launch a little poll here, a Zoom poll, so you can answer some questions about yourself. And it's a little icebreaker for our meeting. There are 2 questions. The first one is, how do you most often use trails within the Folsom Lake State Recreation Area and Folsom Powerhouse State Historic Park? It's a multiple choice question. We know that many people have many ways they use the park. We're just looking for the one that you most frequently, most often use the park for. And if you scroll down, there is a second question. You have to use the scroll bar on the right to scroll down to see the second question, which is, how far do you typically travel to get to Folsom Lake State Recreation Area and the State Powerhouse State Historic Park, with the options being less than 1 mile, between 1 and 5 miles, 5 to 10 miles, or 10 to 25 miles. And then more than 50 miles is also an option. So we're going to give a little bit of time here for folks to fill those out, and then let everybody see the results.
The results are being shared now.
Great. So looks like about even numbers are here representing or most often using the trails for mountain biking and horse riding is the kind of 2 most commonly used ways to access the park, next being hiking, road biking, and trail running. And we have 17 folks that took the poll, and I think we have about 35 folks in the meeting. So not everyone has answered, but gives a sense a little bit of who's here. The second question looks like about even on the middle range, 5 to 10 and 10 to 25 miles. So that was just a little icebreaker for us. And with that, we will move on and go on to our next slide.
All right, great. Thanks, Isabel. I would like to provide just a little bit of a background and context for the Roads and Trails Management Plan. Next slide, please. The Folsom Lake State Recreation Area is approximately 20,000 acres of land and water and is centered around 2 reservoirs, Folsom Lake and Lake Natoma. Most of the park around the 2 reservoirs is federal property owned by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, though there are about 2,200 acres of state-owned lands. State Parks manages the recreation activities on the federal lands through a managing partnership agreement with Reclamation. This is a 25-year agreement that was signed in 2012. There are approximately 120 miles of system trails within the Folsom Lake State Recreation Area, that serve a wide array of trail uses. And in addition, there are approximately 50 miles of non-system trail. These consist primarily of user-created trails that have been established over time. There are approximately 20 miles of public access park roads, and these include both paved and dirt roadways. And this park sees just over 2 million visitors annually. In comparison, the Folsom Powerhouse State Historic Park is relatively small. It's approximately 35 acres in size, and it too consists of both state and federal lands. The park's primary purpose is to preserve and interpret the historic Folsom Powerhouse that began sending power 22 miles to Sacramento on July 13th, 1895. There are approximately 2.5 miles of trail in this park, consisting of footpaths within the core of the State Historic Park, trails to Lake Natoma and the Native American Grinding Rock site, as well as trails along the historic canal on the northeast side of Greenback Lane. Next slide, please. The Folsom Lake State Recreation Area and Folsom Powerhouse State Historic Park General Plan and Resource Management Plan was completed for both park units and approved in the fall of 2009 by the State Park and Recreation Commission. The general plan provides direction for the preparation of a trails management plan. At that time, the current template for road and trail management plans had not been fully developed by the department. In addition to providing direction for a trails management plan, the general plan also lists several goals and guidelines on trails management, as well as trail development proposals. Some examples of these include provide trail access at Dike 7, which may include a small trailhead with parking and trail information signs, develop a Class 1 bike path from the trailhead at Mormon Island Dam to Dike 7, and develop a multidisciplinary volunteer trail patrol, which would include representatives from each of our trail user groups that model a shared youth ethic. These are just a few examples, and I would welcome you to review the general plan for more road and trail related items. The general plan is available on our state parks website. And next, Jim will go into the purpose and the content of the roads and trails management plan.
Next slide. Thanks, Rich. Again, I'm Jim Michaels, Senior Park and Recreation Specialist with the Goldfields District. And the purpose of a road and trail management plan is to provide specific and detailed management direction for roads and trails within a park unit. The road and trail management plan will tier to the Folsom Lake State Recreation Area and Folsom Powerhouse General Plan and Resource Management Plan. The road and trail management plan is still primarily a programmatic level planning document. What this means is that many of the planning recommendations will require additional site-specific planning and environmental review. This includes further planning identified for non-system trail networks, new trails and trailhead facilities identified in the plan, and for the change in use decisions, site-specific environmental review will be needed for the trail modifications identified for each change in use. Next slide, please. Here's a quick look at what has been done already in the road and trail management plan. It was initiated in 2012. An on-site trail user survey was conducted in 2013 and 2014. Focus group meetings were held in 2014. And the change in use evaluations were initiated in 2015 and 2016. In the following couple of years, we worked on the segment by segment trail maintenance recommendations. And finally, we reinitiated the plan with our strategic planning staff and with PlaceWorks in 2021. Next slide, please. And here's the current project schedule. Kicking off this most recent planning phase, we held a virtual public meeting on October 26, 2021. Over the course of the fall and winter of 2021, we implemented additional trail user surveys. We held several pop-up events as public outreach for the plan. On May 23rd, the draft road and trail management plan was made available for public review, and we are asking for public comments on this draft plan by June 22nd. We will consider and review this public input and revise the draft plan as appropriate. and prepare the environmental review for this plan over the summer. We plan to release the revised plan and the CEQA NEPA environmental documents for the plan for public review in late August or early September. There will be a public comment period at that time. Our goal is to complete the final road trail management plan and environmental review documents in late 2022 or early 2023. Next slide. Next, we're going to have provide a brief overview of the plan. Next slide. So the plan consists of various sections, including background information. There's an introduction, there's a description of the planning process, and a brief overview of the park conditions. There's sections on the department's approach to trail designation and classifications, and the department's best management practices for roads and trails. But the core of the document, the plan itself, includes park-wide recommendations and then area-specific recommendations. There's a number of appendices in the plan, including a summary of the change in use recommendations. Next slide. The park-wide recommendations are broad goals and objectives organized into 5 categories. And tonight we're highlighting an example from each of those categories. Under coordination and collaboration, as Rich mentioned, something that was in the general plan, we have a recommendation to develop a multi-user volunteer trail patrol that would include equestrians, pedestrians, and cyclists. Under ongoing planning and management, there's direction to provide a trail system that provides broad public benefit and accommodates a diverse and growing population. Planning for new facilities and connections. We have a recommendation to explore development of a bicycle skills area or technical riding area. Design and maintenance. The direction for non-system trails is to remove or restore these trails unless otherwise identified in the road and trail management plan. And I do want to note that within the plan, there are several areas of non-system trail networks that are identified for further planning. Lastly, under outreach, education, and interpretation, we have a recommendation to develop a road and trail sign plan to improve wayfinding and interpretation. Next slide. The area recommendations, the park units were divided into 6 planning areas to be able to provide more detailed site-specific recommendations and to better depict the recommendations on the plan maps. These areas include Lower Lake Natoma, Upper Lake Natoma, Beals Point and Granite Bay, the North Fork of the American River, Browns Ravine, and the South Fork of the American River. And you can see these 6 areas depicted on the map on this slide. Within the plan for each of these areas, there's a brief description of the area, and then there's a series of planning recommendations, which include issue statements, and then the planning recommendation itself. Also within the plan, there are 3 maps for each area. There's a map of existing roads and trails, a map of maintenance recommendations, and a map of planning recommendations. And tonight, when we give a brief overview of these area recommendations, we'll be looking at the planning recommendation maps. Next slide. So I do want to emphasize that this will be a very brief overview, as we want to leave plenty of time for public comment. We encourage everyone to review the full plan document to get a complete understanding of the recommendations. In the Lower Lake Natoma area, recommendations include improvements to existing trailhead and staging facilities, including the Lake Overlook, Snowberry, Willow Creek, and Park Shore trailheads. Development of a new trailhead and parking facility at Mississippi Bar. A new interpretive trail at the Park Shore trailhead area. Further planning for the Mississippi Bar non-system trails. Development of a Lake Natoma water trail. And approval with conditions of 2 change in use requests in this area, adding bikes to the Shady Trail and the Snowberry Trail. Next slide. In the Upper Lake Natoma area, the recommendations include improvement and adoption of a couple of specific non-system trails, the Negro Bar Shoreline Trail and the American Canyon Drive Access Trail. redesign and improvement of the Negro Bar main parking lot and the Rainbow Rocks parking lot to improve trail access and provide additional trailhead facilities. The plan identifies a new accessible trail for the Powerhouse. And there are recommendations to approve several change in use requests in this area, including the Snipes Pershing Creek Trail and the Pioneer Express Trail from the Snipes Pershing Outlet, which is at the north end of Mississippi Bar, up to the Folsom Lake Crossing Bridge. Next slide. In the Beals Point and Granite Bay area, planning recommendations include developing a plan to extend the paved trail from Beals Point to Granite Bay along the tops of the dikes and the service road. Further planning for the North Granite Bay non-system trails to determine whether to adopt, reroute, or eliminate these trails. There's a large network of trails in the North Granite Bay area. Other recommendations are to provide improvements to existing trailhead and staging facilities, including the Granite Bay Horse Assembly area, the Old County Road parking area, and at Doten's Point. There's a recommendation to adopt an existing non-system shoreline route for multi-use access along the North Fork. There are recommendations to approve a change in use, adding bikes to 2 short sections of the Pioneer Express Trail in this area. One of these segments is just south of Beals Point and one is just north of Beals Point. And lastly, for this area, there's a recommendation to limit off-road vehicle access between Oak Point and Doten's Point below the high pool reservoir level. Next slide. In the North Fork American River area, there's a recommendation to develop a new multi-use trail, the North Fork Trail, between the peninsula and the Olmsted Loop at Auburn State Recreation Area. There's a recommendation to improve trailhead and staging facilities at Rattlesnake Bar and potentially to develop a new trailhead facility at the end of Horseshoe Bar Road. A new interpretive trail at Avery's Pond is identified. Next slide. In the Browns Ravine area, we have a recommendation to develop a Class 1 paved trail between Dike 7 and the Mormon Island Auxiliary Dam, and to connect that trail with the city of Folsom's Johnny Cash Trail. Develop a new trailhead facility at Dike 7. There's recommendation to improve existing trailhead and parking facilities at Mormon Island Cove, Browns Ravine, and Folsom Point. Develop interpretive trails at Mormon Island Wetlands Natural Preserve and at Folsom Point. Also in this area, there's a recommendation for further planning of the non-system trail network in the Lake Ridge Oaks area. I do want to note that the Browns Ravine Trail change in use decision is being made through a separate standalone process. Next slide. The South Fork American River area, we have planning recommendations to make improvements to existing trailhead and staging facilities, including at Falcon Crest, Monte Vista, Old Salmon Falls, the Darrington Trailhead, and out at the peninsula. As previously noted, we do have a recommendation to develop a new multi-use trail, the North Fork Trail, which a portion of which would also be in this area. And that trail is between the peninsula and the Olmsted Loop at Auburn State Recreation Area. There's recommendations to make improvements to existing trails within this area, including the Monte Vista trails and the Sweetwater Trail, particularly where the Sweetwater Trail crosses Sweetwater Creek. And lastly, we have a recommendation to improve the unpaved road network out at the peninsula to provide better trail experience. Next slide. I want to briefly review the change in use recommendations in the plan. I've identified some of them in the area recommendations. In addition to the change in use evaluation factors for individual trails, we also considered the following factors in looking at the change in use recommendations across the entire park unit. First, we considered the park unit classification. Folsom is a state recreation area, and SRAs generally allow for more active forms of recreation than state parks. The Public Resources Code defines SRAs as areas selected and developed to provide multiple recreation opportunities to meet other than purely local needs. The code notes that these areas have been selected. They have terrain capable of withstanding extensive human impact. They have proximity to large population centers, and that improvements may be undertaken to provide for a whole range of recreational activities within state recreation areas. We also looked at the goals for trails in the general plan and resource management plan, including these two goals: providing a trail system that provides broad public benefit by accommodating diverse trail uses and abilities, and considering the recreation needs of a growing user population and changes in recreation uses and demand. We recognize there are different trail user needs, and we look to balance these different needs, including providing increased single track access for bikes where possible while maintaining trail safety and sustainability, and also recognizing the desirability of providing different types of trail experiences and preserving some non-bike trail opportunities. Lastly, we followed the department's change in use process. Next slide. Using these considerations and following that change in use process, here are the change in use recommendations for Lake Natoma. We had a number of requests for change in use on the north or west side of Lake Natoma, and where possible, we tried to provide single track access and connectivity for bikes across the north side of Lake Natoma. The plan includes recommendations to approve a change in use with conditions, adding bikes to the Shady, Snowberry, and Snipes Pershing Creek trails and segments of the Pioneer Express Trail. Requests for a change in use to the Middle Ridge Trail and several segments of the Pioneer Express Trail in the lower Lake Natoma area were not approved. Next slide. At Folsom Lake, in the area between Beals Point and Granite Bay, the plan includes recommendations to approve a change in use, adding bikes to two short segments of the Pioneer Express Trail. I mentioned this previously. One of those segments is just south of Beals Point Entrance Road, and one is just north of Beals Point. The plan does not recommend approval to add bikes to a third segment of the Pioneer Express Trail between Dikes 4 and 5. In the area between Granite Bay and Auburn State Recreation Area, the plan does not recommend adding bikes to the Pioneer Express Trail from Beeks Bight in the North Granite Bay area to Auburn State Recreation Area. This stretch of the Pioneer Express Trail is challenging to implement a change in use and still maintain trail sustainability and safety. The existing conditions of this section of trail include deeply entrenched sections of trail, and the soils on the north side of Folsom Lake are much more erosive than the soils on the south side of Folsom Lake. There's a relatively narrow public land base that constrains our ability to provide effective reroutes that would be required for a change in use. While a change in use was not approved in this area, the plan does provide a recommendation to adopt an alternate multi-user route utilizing the North Fork shoreline route. And I mentioned that recommendation in one of the planning area recommendations. In the area of Browns Ravine and the South Fork American River, as I noted previously, the Browns Ravine Trail change in use, a separate project, proposes to add bikes to the Browns Ravine Trail and provide multi-use connectivity along the South Fork arm of Folsom Lake. The Road and Trail Management Plan does not recommend approval of a change in use for the Monte Vista trails. Next slide. So that concludes a brief overview of the plan. And again, we encourage everybody to look at the full plan to get a complete understanding of the planning document. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Isabel. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jim, for a great overview of the plan recommendations. We're going to do another quick poll here for you to share your thoughts if you have had a chance to review the plan, which has been online for a little over a week. But if you have not, that's fine. There definitely still is time. But if you have had the chance to review it or feel like you've got a good sense of it from Jim's presentation, you could answer these two poll questions that we asked. How well does the draft plan address concerns or desires related to roads and trails at the Folsom area state parks? And that's just a single choice on a scale of 1 to 5. And if you scroll down, there's a second question. Similarly, if you feel you can answer about the plan, if you've had a chance to review or have a good sense of the contents, how much do you agree with the statement? The draft plan considers the recreation needs of a growing user population, changes in user recreation demand, and accommodating a variety of trail user experience. And we'll give a little bit of time for folks to answer. And I misspoke a little earlier when I said that we had close to 40 participants. A number of those are state park staff and members of our team. So there's probably closer to 20, 22 members of the public at the meeting here this evening. And again, sorry, I just was corrected. There are 34 participants that are members of the public in our meeting tonight. So yeah, you can see, well, we'll end the poll in a second here. I think the answers have mostly come in from folks who are planning to take the poll with the first question kind of answer in the middle. Those people felt that it acceptably addresses concerns or desires related to roads and trails. And on the second question, there is mixed agreement, some undecided, and some agree and some disagree on how well the plan considers recreation needs of a growing user population. And with that, just wanted to get a sense of how people are feeling about the plan and how it addresses goals and concerns. And with that, we will move on to the next slide, where I'm just going to give an overview of the different ways that we can continue to receive input on the plan beyond tonight. We're going to have a little demonstration. Some of you may have already used the public commenting tool, which is online and allows you to specifically comment and on a map-based in a map-based way, if desired, on the plan recommendations. We'll have Jason from State Parks demonstrate in just a minute. I'll just also say that we are accepting verbal comments tonight. Many of you registered to speak, so following this portion, we will have a public comment period to allow folks who registered to speak and give comments. We have our email for the plan, for the project. You can email trails@parks.ca.gov. There's a sign up to receive future updates on the web page for the project, and there's the website. So a lot of ways to comment, and there's a bit of time left. 2 weeks beyond tonight is the close of the public comment period for the plan. There will be a public commenting period for the environmental document as well, which is coming in the next months, later this summer and fall. But for the plan, there are 2 weeks past tonight to provide comments. So with that, I will turn it over to Jason Span with California State Parks to just briefly demonstrate the commenting tool.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to try to share my screen here. Can somebody let me know if they can see the public commenting tool? Okay,
Yes,
great.
we can see it.
Great. So I'm just going to briefly go over this. Like I said, some of you have probably used this already. I'm hoping it's fairly straightforward, but the web page will open up here. This is a location where you can enter your contact information. It's not mandatory, but if you do, that will ensure that you're on our email list, and you will also receive a confirmation email that we received your comment. So you can go ahead and enter your information. Go ahead and hit next. This will take you to the how-to guide, which is pretty self-explanatory, kind of lays out the steps needed to submit a comment. And I'll go ahead and just kind of demonstrate that right now. So if you come down in this area, you see 3 icons. One's a trash can if you wanted to delete a comment. If you made a comment, you wanted to delete it, use that. This is showing the first comment, comment number 1. And then if you want to do additional comments, you can hit the plus sign, and that'll allow you to add really as many comments as you would like. So the first question is a comment referring to a specific planning recommendation? So if you're wondering if you're trying to comment on a specific planning recommendation, you can come up to the upper right here where it says click to view planning recommendations map. That'll take you to the planning recommendations map. This is the same information that's in the road and trail management plan document. And if you were to click in one of these ovals or circles, it will highlight them. It will also highlight them in the list over in this area. It'll give a brief explanation, summary of the recommendation. If you want more detailed information, you'd have to go to the plan to get more details, but it does summarize it. And inversely, if you were to click over here on the list on a recommendation, that's going to highlight that recommendation and zoom you in on that recommendation. So that way you can get an idea of what the planning recommendations are. You can come back to the enter comments over here. And if you do want to comment on a planning recommendation, you would select yes. This would allow you access to a drop-down menu, which contains all of the planning recommendations. And once again, if you don't know which these pertain to, you can use the planning recommendation map. So you can select one of these, and then you come down to the category of comment that you have. And we're hoping that you can categorize your comments. If you have more than one comment on a specific planning recommendation, you can select multiple categories. And each category that you select, you'll see that there's a box where you can enter your comments for each of those. And once you're completed in your comments, you just hit submit. Or if you'd like to add another comment, you would come back up here, hit the plus sign. In this case, is your comment referring to a specific planning recommendation? Maybe it's not, so you could hit no. The next question is your comment about a specific area of the park. You may have a particular location at the park you want to comment on, and if so, you could hit yes. And that's going to take you to an interactive map. And right now, this map looks really small, but if you go to this symbol here, this will enlarge the map, and you can zoom in, you can scroll around. And once you find a location that you'd like to comment on, you can just left click on that location. You'll see this point come up. Once that's done, that's located your comment. You can close that, and then you can proceed with your comment by selecting your categories and adding whatever comments you want. And after that's done, you can submit. If you wanted to do one more comment, you could add another one. In this case, we're not going to comment on our planning recommendation. And we really just want to make a general comment, so it's not a specific area of the park, so we hit none. And then once again, you can select whichever categories of information. There's an other here. If these categories don't fit your needs, you can hit an other. And once again, add your comments in the box. And when everything's done, you hit submit. And after you hit submit, you should receive a confirmation email. If all else fails, we're hoping that you can use the comment tool, but you are also free to go ahead and send your comments to the trails@parks.ca.gov email. Also, if you have questions on the commenter tool, you can send those questions there, and we will respond to those questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Jason. So just a quick reminder, we've gotten a couple and we will be having a Q&A period a little later this evening. So feel free if you do have questions on anything that was presented tonight, the plan, the tool. In the chat, you can select to send a question to _project_questions. And we are collecting those and we'll be asking them a little bit later. And with that, we will move into the public comment period. We know that a number of folks have signed up, registered to speak during the comment period. The way we're going to do it is we have the names, and I'm going to go through that list of folks who registered to speak. We're allowing 2 minutes, given the number of registered folks we had and wanting to be respectful and ending our meeting on time this evening. We're going to give 2 minutes, and to help give you a sense, this is really a comment period. If you have questions, please submit those in the chat to project questions. So this period, we will not have time for every comment to have a response from California State Parks, but we are recording the meeting and the comments, and these will serve as kind of the body of comments on the draft plan, along with any others that are submitted on the website or using the commenting tool. So with that, what I'm going to do is announce the speaker. We're just going to go through the list in the order that the signups occurred. I'm going to call on the first speaker on the list, and then let know the second person or the next person to come so that you can be prepared. And we will look for you and unmute or request to unmute. So you should be able to unmute yourself when it's your turn to speak. And lastly, and actually there's some instructions. I don't know, Janet, if you want to go over it for folks who aren't totally familiar with using this.
Sure. So the raise hand feature is really if, we have our list of people who signed up during the registration period to speak. If your name is not, if we can't find your name in the list, for if you're maybe called iPhone or if you're part of a group watching, please do raise your hand if your name is called and we can't find your name, so we know to unmute you. And you can do that by clicking participants in the bottom, and you'll see a raise hand button, and you can click that, and that's on the computer and smartphone and tablet. You click the 3 dots and you have a raise hand feature. If you're joining by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. But that, I think you can announce the first person to speak and the runner-up. Yeah, I'll just also mention the timer, Janet, that we have a little timer tool just to assist, and it's showing up as a participant on the screen. So if you have the grid for the Zoom window and you want to take a glance at that for the 2 minutes, it'll be counting down, and there's also a chime letting you know there's 30 seconds, and then there will be a bell at 2 minutes. So we're trying to make sure everyone that registered, and even some additional folks who might want to comment at the end of this period to get a turn. So we are going to try to stick to the 2 minute time window so everyone does have the opportunity. So thanks so much for sticking with that explanation and the instructions. And I'll start with the first person, and that is Garrett McDermott. If you can raise your hand, we will unmute you. And the next person after Garrett McDermott will be Roland Jackson.
Hello, sorry if that's a little loud. Let me turn that down. Thank you for having us on. I'm a representative from the Folsom Auburn Trail Rider Action Coalition. You can see in our video that we are kind of collaborated, or we all got together to see this meeting. So hopefully we can have a couple turns talking, because we have a lineup after me. But I want to just say thank you to all the staff from State Parks for doing all the hard work that you did to address the concerns that have been brought up with trail equity. Getting access to trails for mountain bikes is what Fat Track has been trying to do for many years. So we're really excited to see the progress that's been made in this road and trail management plan. With the progress, though, we always see there's room for improvement. And we're all kind of like surfers. We're territorial where we ride. And I'm sure a lot of the people in Fat Track want to address their areas of where they ride. Me personally, I'm just a board member from Fat Track, and my place where I ride is on Middle Ridge. And I think that not just me, but my daughter who's sitting over there on her tablet, she's 7 years old and she rides and she's pretty good, but Middle Ridge is kind of it's the step up from being a beginner. And it was very confusing on how the trail plan explained how Middle Ridge was. It was there were two trails that were explained, one at the top and then one that goes through the middle. And it talked about decommissioning one of those, which I didn't think was made a lot of sense. It also didn't approve Fat Track. 30 seconds, okay. So I would like to see that trail be reconsidered for a change in use designation to allow bikes. I've been personally watching who uses that trail. There's about 50 hikers per day in the last week that are using that, and about 20 bikes per day, and no equestrians. So I don't see why that trail should be allowed for equestrians and pedestrians, but not bikes. If we can get our next speaker from Fat Track, we have Matt Wetter. He is the president of Fat Track that's jumping up on the microphone to say a few words.
If it's okay, I'd like to go through all the individuals. I don't know if any of the folks in your group had signed up, but we will get to you. I just, I need to go through the list of registered speakers first. And if you can raise your hand at the end, we'll come back. Because I had given a heads up to Roland Jackson, who is the next registered speaker. So I hope that's okay. We will try to get to everybody. Roland, and then the next person after Roland was Wendy Slippian. Pardon me if I'm mispronouncing anything. So Roland, I see you there. Go ahead.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity. I'm just grateful for any trails you can open up to mountain bike use, any extra trails we have to ride legally without breaking the law, or very much appreciated. I'm riding in the Granite Bay area or Darrington Trail or the South Fork of the American River. So the more places we have to ride a mountain bike, the better, and we can share trails. We share trails with equestrians and hikers in Hidden Falls and the Auburn State Recreation Area and so forth. So thank you for whatever you can open up. That's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. So Wendy, if you can raise your hand, and the next person after Wendy will be Guy Atchison. If I'm not finding Wendy, I don't see a hand raised. Okay, don't see Wendy for now, but definitely send us a message in the chat if we missed you. So the next person would be Guy Atchison. Please raise your hand if you are in the meeting. And the next person after Guy would be Valerie Mota. Don't have Guy. Okay. Valerie Mota, if you're here. Like they're not. It's like we'll have some time to take other folks' comments. Okay, Valerie, I don't see Valerie. Next is Lori Christensen. Is Lori here? There's Lori. Great.
Yes, hi. Yes, are you ready for me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, hi, I'm Lori Christensen, and I have ridden on the trails for probably 15 years, and ridden means horseback riding. And I have spent many years in the Granite Bay area, but also now I'm by Browns Ravine. And just like to say, I noticed in your plan that you're promoting awareness of safety and etiquette. And while I find some bike riders very polite and willing to give equestrians the right of way, I find some trail riders being mountain bike riders being very unpolite and unsafe. And so I know you're opening up more trails to more bike riders, and I worry about the collisions, more collisions with bicycle riders from those few that don't represent all of the bike riders. I realize there are some that are very kind to us, but just to let you know, I fear for more collisions on the trails after more bikes are allowed onto the currently hiking and equestrian trails. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all your work you put into it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thanks, Lori. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going down our list of registered speakers. After Lori, Bob Delp. We haven't seen Bob in the attendance, but just sometimes folks are there with a different name. So raise your hand if you're here, Bob Delp. The next person, if Bob is not here, is Garrett McDowell. Garrett, we had already heard from. Jim Hagan Smith. If Jim is here, please raise your hand.
Yeah, okay. So it's Jim Hagan Smith. Just like to quickly suggest that I'd like to see a reconsideration of Pioneer Express Trail going up towards Auburn. As it, I realize that that's super tight conditions in there, but and there's so little property that State Parks has access to. But we should consider odd even day in there. It's definitely a critical connector for people to get back and forth between Auburn and down towards Folsom Lake. So really should consider doing an odd even day there. That's about the extent of my comments. Thanks for all the work, State Parks, and sorry it's taken so long to get to this point since like we started this in the 80s or 90s.
Great, thank you, Jim. Next on the registered speakers is Brian Van Winkle. I also have Susan DeBruin. So the next person is Brian here. Please raise the hand using the raise hand function. If not, Susan DeBruin. Sounds like possibly there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for the meeting this evening. I am approaching this from having been long involved with the Browns Ravine Trail and the change in use. My specific question is, why is the Browns Ravine Trail being considered separately as a standalone project from all the other trails? Because I know that the requests have been going in for years for more bicycle access to all trails. The Browns Ravine Trail is, I understand it's a connectivity point for many people, but I still don't understand why we can't have parallel trail. Nowhere are people expected to walk on sidewalks with bicycles or other fast-moving user things that people use, skates, skateboards, scooters. So to have some areas, if the Browns Ravine Trail goes on this side of the lake, totally, then there's no place left that people can walk or ride without bicycle interface.
Great. Thank you, Susan, for the comments. You had a question in there, and we're going to keep it for the question and answer period. We've put it in our list of questions. But for now, I'm just going to go through the commenting. portion. So I'll move to the next commenter, who's actually Robert De Bruin. I don't know if Robert is available.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Robert.
Thanks for all your efforts. You guys are working very hard. To us, it's a safety issue. So that's my comment is I've been on the Brownsbury Trail for years and years and years. I am a mountain biker. I am a bike rider. That's my primary recreation. But I feel that it's definitely not a safe issue, and been through this many times. Parallel trails would be an answer to allow people to have access without safety issues. I'm a physician. There's zero doubts in my mind that that's an accident waiting to happen. So that's my comment.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Next on our registered speakers list is Vida Morhan, and the person after that would be David Wyatt. Vida, if you are there, please raise your hand. We can unmute you.
See a message in the chat from Vita saying that she yields her time to the group background.
Okay. Sorry, to the group.
To the first commenter, but I think we
Oh,
could
okay.
just,
Yeah, we'll go back. We'll go
Yeah.
back to that group. I just have we have a few more folks on the registered list, and then we'll go back. We will have some time. I assure you that we can take additional comments. So the next registered commenter is David Wyatt. David, if you're here.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much for having us here. And I'd like to commend State Parks for the hard work that they put into this documentation. My name is David Wyatt. I'm the president of the West Sacramento Trail Riders Association. And we have already provided written comments to the Browns Ravine portion because that's a separate document. But I'd like to echo what both Lori, Susan, and Robert said was our main concerns are associated with the safety issue. Having a 1,000-pound horse under you, and to be quite frank, most trail riders in terms of the bike riders are good. They are respectful, but there are a few individuals, and the big concern with equestrian riders is the fact that not the one person that passes so closely to the horse, but it's the person right behind them that ends up getting kicked by a horse. And that is a significant medical issue, as brought up by Robert. And we had concerns regarding that aspect of it. And we do support the idea of a dual trail system in Browns Ravine as a potential solution for that. But thank you very much for allowing us to comment on this, and that we do have these safety concerns associated with equestrian mixing with something that's a fast approaching vehicle such as a trail bike. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, David. Next is Marianne Stewart, if you're here. And the next person on the list is Peggy Christensen.
I'm here, but I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, Marianne. We can hear you.
Okay. I also am an equestrian trail rider and been riding the trails around Folsom for probably 18 years. In all that time, I know there have been many times when I individually and groups have approached state parks, either through Folsom Trail Patrol or through Gold Country Trails Council, or as individuals, complaining about the lack of signage, the lack of yield signage, that signs saying this is a horse trail only, or no bikes or whatever, have been vandalized or destroyed or removed. I don't see $1 of improvement in the last 15 years in signs. They've deteriorated. A couple of years ago, a few signs were replaced, but there doesn't appear to be an ongoing budget for trail maintenance in terms of multi-users. So if a trail gets rutted from a lot of bike use, there's no consideration given to regrading the trail for hikers' use or horse riders' use. If there are low-hanging branches all over the place, I've spoken with Folsom Park Maintenance, and unless a tree has fallen down, they don't come out. So if bikers wonder why horse people don't use certain trails, it's because we can come around a corner and get our neck broken off from low-hanging branches. And I used to do a lot of trail maintenance myself while mounted on my horse, but it has gotten so fast out there that I can't sit on my horse and saw a branch at the same time without fear of being hit by a bicycle. So I don't see anywhere in this plan standards in terms of multi-use trail. And regarding the comment about Hidden Falls, they have entirely different sight lines. They have much better planning, much wider trails, ongoing daily vigilance about trail use and vigilance about maintenance. And that is totally not present. So I can't see. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. We do need to stick to the 2 minutes. Okay. Peggy Christensen, if you're here, please raise your hand. I see Ken's iPad. I'm not certain if that's Peggy Christensen or not. Send us a message in the chat.
Unmute. Can you hear me, Isabel?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Good evening, Isabel. This is Peggy, and
okay.
I have talked to you a couple times on.
Oh, sorry, Peggy. I was trying to mute myself.
Unmute.
Sorry.
Are you cutting me off?
No, not at all. Go ahead.
Good evening, Isabel. I have called you a couple of times and expressed a lot of concerns about the Browns Ravine Trail, and actually about most of the trails, but especially the Browns Ravine. I have ridden this trail for over 35 years. We came to this area in 1969, and so I've been there using that trail for a long time. Our main concern is safety, huge. Everybody has the argument that everybody pays taxes, but you know what? Those taxes don't pay my hospital bill, and I do not want to recover from accidents. I absolutely do not want to be in the hospital. So that is not a very viable reason. Connectivity of the trail does not supersede safety. This is a completely different trail. The line of sight, the width of the trail, the terrain is not conducive to at least a 25-mile-an-hour e-bike and a 2-mile-an-hour family walk or an equestrian. It's hilly, it's steep. I know you're trying to do lots and lots of improvements, but it does not pertain to safety whatsoever. There's a reason that skateboards and bicycles do not go on sidewalks. Sidewalks are designed for people. And also, like the Darrington Trail is very, very lightly used. Horses are not allowed on the Darrington Trail because of safety. The line of sight there is terrible. I thoroughly enjoy Folsom Lake. I would love everybody to enjoy Folsom Lake, but I absolutely do not want anybody to go into the hospital. It's not conducive to these different user groups. That one is very, very fast and one is very slow. Please, please do not allow more bikes on the trail or make it safe.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We have one more on our registered speakers list, and then I'll go back through and ask for hands. So Dawn Rose, registered. Are you here, Dawn?
Yeah, Don Rose here. Actually, I submitted a question through chat, so I don't have any additional comments, and I yield my time to Fat Track.
Great. Okay, so we did have a couple yielding of time to the group. And then I see one hand from KOU, so and from John. So let's see, to kind of follow the order we had, we did have another person yield their 2 minutes to the Fat Track folks. So I will do the 2 minutes there right now, and then I'll go through the other hands that have been raised. Oh, sorry, Ku, I don't know if you're speaking yet, but we're gonna have one person from the Fat Track group go first, and then I'll come to you right after.
Okay, thanks so much. My name is Matt Wetter. I'm the president of Fat Track, and Fat Track, we've been around since about 1988. It's the primary bike advocacy group, mountain bike advocacy group for the area. We've donated over 2,000 hours of trail maintenance, that's on the ground trail maintenance time over the last couple of years. But I will reiterate everybody's previous comments about how much we appreciate this road and trail management plan making its way through the way. I think it looks to be an awful lot of progress. Sorry, apologies for that. We're not experts at audiovisual though, but we do an awful lot of trail maintenance, and I think that's pretty well documented. I think Parks can reiterate that and speak to how much we've reached out to help out with, trail brushing on all the trails, as well as dirt maintenance and reducing some of the erosion issues and whatnot that have been going on. And that's all pretty well documented. I do have a couple of questions about some of the items that are in the road and trail management plan. Specifically just kind of about the language, and when you talk about things like explore technical trail feature area and stuff like that, how does that compare to other areas where you say you've got a planned trailhead and stuff like that? And is that substantive, or is that just a matter of editorial items? And one of the other things, certainly you can appreciate all the concerns about safety, and I think Fat Track's done a ton, especially the Bell program, to make sure that everybody understands etiquette and make sure that everybody's getting along pretty well. And we want to continue that program for the years to come. But I think the number of instances or incidents that have been recorded over the last 20 odd years are pretty indicative of how big a safety issue it is. It's really more of an etiquette issue, a reducing chance encounters and whatnot. We want to make sure that doesn't happen, and we're going to stand right behind Parks to reduce that. But I think we do need to keep in mind, a bit of an overstatement about how much of a safety issue it is. There's been so few, certainly bike, horse, or pedestrian interactions over the years that have resulted in any kind of injury. I think that statistic stands on its own. And finally, I think the shared use trails that are discussed, especially going up the North Fork, I think one of the primary goals of this road and trail management plan should be to support a trail that goes all the way around Folsom Lake. I think that's been a longstanding goal for all user groups. And in order to make that happen, I think we have to have shared use trails all the way around the lake, specifically the Pioneer Express Trail.
Sorry, I am gonna have to ask maybe for someone else in your group to catch up.
Problem. This is Addie McDermott sitting next to me. That's up next.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the folks. I had told Ku they were next, and yeah, I did. Can you give me the name, the person who just spoke with the Fat Track group? Can you give me your name though? Because we just want to document and we didn't have it.
Sure, it's Matt Wetter, W-E-T-T-E-R.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matt. We'll be back to Addie. So next I had mentioned to Ku, and then I see that Wendy Slepian, who had been on our registered speakers list, is here. So I'm going to go to Ku, then Wendy, and we'll move our way through the folks with raised hands. And just so you know, we have some time. We're going to take questions or take comments until 7:30, so we will get to all of you. Ku, go ahead.
Hey, thank you for this opportunity to speak. Even though I wasn't registered, I kind of found out about this last minute, but I just wanted to throw some support for allowing more users on Browns Ravine. We walked that trail. We thoroughly enjoy it. Every time we walked it, we've not seen anyone on it. And so I have a whole crew of people that certainly are very respectful on the trails, especially to the horses and the hikers. And I just want to throw some support out there to Fat Track, as well as maybe additional more mountain bike trails. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Did you want to say something?
Hi.
Okay.
Thank you
That-
for your
thank you.
comments. Okay, so next I'm gonna go to Wendy. And then after Wendy, we will go to, was it Addie with the Fat Track group? Did I get that name right? So we'll go to Wendy next. Oh,
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a local area resident. I walk the trail every single day. I'm also a road biker and a mountain biker. And I do not think it's appropriate to take this portion of land from Browns Ravine to Salmon Falls and allow mountain bikes on it, because they're simply moving too fast for existing use, which is meant for trail hiking and for horses. So it's obviously a very bad combination. Most of the trail has a line of sight that is inadequate. For 1 mile from the water treatment plant, 1 mile east, there are 14 different areas where you cannot see 14 feet in front of you. If you can't see 14 feet in front of you, you're not going to be able to see a blind turn and mountain bikers coming the other way. It's simply not wide enough for multi-use. Multi-use would require at least 12 feet. Right now, most of the areas are 2 to 4 feet. So there's also absolutely nothing posted about speed. There's nothing posted about the intended use of that space. So without the controls in place, it's extremely unsafe. So I'm asking that you consider that there would need to be major changes in order to make it multi-use. And you can't just broad brush it and say, oh, line of sight's fine. Oh, the terrain is gently rolling. No, it's very steep. It's all along the lake. So please consider the safety, the fact that it's not controlled. Reporting of accidents doesn't happen. There's no instructions about that. People that get hurt, they are on their own. So please consider this. If you wanted to go to different days for use purposes, that would be fine. But the way it is now, it is not safe and it's not adequate for multi-use. Thank you.
thank you, Wendy. Thanks for your comments. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the group. So I think it was Addie, but correct me if it's a different name. And then after that, I'm gonna go to John Poimiru, who has his hand raised. So go ahead.
All right, Adeline, you're up. What do you want to tell them about riding mountain bikes on Middle Ridge Trail?
I just think Middle Ridge is like a good track. Like it's fun, but sometimes I crash and it's fun too, but I still have lots of fun.
Do you like riding bikes on Shady Trail too?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Middle Ridge is harder than Shady?
No.
No.
They're both. No, they're not hard at all.
Yeah. Do you think everybody should get to ride bikes on Shady Trail and Middle Ridge?
Yeah.
Right. Why is that?
Like, cause like no horses really go on like Middle Ridge, and horses can't really fit on Middle Ridge too. Cause like horses are big, and it's only like this like straight little line, or like not like straight, but it doesn't really like fit their entire body. They would have to like go this way, like up the hill, maybe.
Yeah. You're doing great. Okay. We've got Grayson that wants to speak next. If we can have another turn, we'll jump back in the queue though. Grayson's next to me. Thank you, Adeline. Good job.
Thank you. Okay, I'm happy to come back and we will definitely get to you so that everyone, if there's a group there and you're sharing a window, each person can get the 2 minutes. So, but I did mention to John that he would go and I'll be back. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just unmuted. Thanks. I'm John Poimiru and I'm with.
Oh. Sorry, John, you need to unmute again.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was just introducing myself. I'm John Poimiru and I'm with the American River Bike Patrol. we're a unit of the National Ski Patrol, and we presently, and for the past 2 years, have patrolled from Old Sacramento all the way out to Beals Point. I'd like to talk about the planning for the North Fork and Browns Ravine multi-use trails. We would recommend that the planners consider extrication points for medical emergencies, such as, say, for example, a neck injury or fractured femur, that kind of thing, which we've had on the American River Bike Trail, which is a Class 1 multi-use trail. And also, we recommend not that you define extrication points, because some of this will be remote, but that you also work with the rangers and with volunteer patrollers like ourselves and the equestrian patrols to define the methods of extraction. Will you use the wheeled litters, helicopter removal, off-road vehicles, or ATVs? So I think that's important to put that into the planning process early. I know that's getting down into the weeds, but if you don't have the extrication points in mind, it could be more difficult later on. That's really all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Okay, and then I am going to go back to the young woman with the fat track group, because there was another time yielded. I understand about the yielding of the time. It's just it's a little tricky when I have a list of names that I'm going down, so I want to a little easier to read off. But I'm happy to have you all go for the time yielded to fat track. Is there someone else in the group that wants to speak? And after that, I will go to Robert Sidnor.
My name is Grayson Bear, and I live in the Mather area. I like to volunteer at the Fair Oaks Bike Park because it is one of the best bike parks I've been to, and for being in that category, it is one of the closest. I volunteer to help maintain trails, and I'm grateful for the trails like Lake Ntomo and Granite Bay that are by my house. I hope in the future that there'll be more available trails for people that live in my area, for people to ride those. I hope that you will support opening and building new trails for multi-use trails and mountain bikers. The day that I found out that the jumps at Granite Bay were bulldozed, I was sad. Those were some of my favorite jumps, and I hope in the future that there'll be more jumps like that around the Granite Bay trails. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I got your name correctly. It's Grayson, correct? Grayson, the last name?
Bear, B-A-I-R.
B-A-I-R. Okay, thank you.
We have Colin Wood as well that would like to speak next whenever we're back in the queue. Thank you.
Okay, I will be back for Colin Wood. Okay, Robert Sidnor, you've been very patient. There you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, my name is Robert Sidnor, and I'm an trail master for the American Endurance Ride Conference. I've written several detailed long letters about Browns Ravine, and Richard Preston's certainly been able to read those, and so is Jim Michaels. It's all about safety, and we had several people that have hiked on Browns Ravine, and they know that you have just many, many blind corners where it's only a few feet of horizontal distance to see a fast-moving mountain biker coming at you. And then I was a little concerned about this young lady just a minute ago that said she wanted to see bike jumps. I think we need to be on record that when a mountain bike is gone airborne, that is extremely frightening to horses. They bolt, and it's very serious. And the people that want to do those kind of bike jumps should go out to Prairie City, which is a California state park with bike jumps and all kinds of good things. And Jason Spann has been out there many times. So to see Prairie City. Anyway, I'll be putting in again written comments. So thanks very much. But safety comes first.
Great. Thank you, Robert. Next, Mika or Micah. And after that, I have Ken Dawson with the hands raised.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for putting the plan together and this meeting together. I just really want to commend Fat Track and Garrett and their team. They do a phenomenal job promoting mountain biking, which is a healthy outdoor exercise. They promote a lot of this with kids. So many kids go out there and use the park in Fair Oaks and learn how to ride and appreciate outdoor activity. I think the trail should be accessible to all. I don't think there should be one particular group that feels entitled over another. There should be equality, right? And I think that Middle Trail or Middle Ridge and Shady Trail should be available for everyone's use. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Next, we have Ken, and then after that, I will go back to hear from, was it Colin with the Fat Track group?
Great, thank you. Appreciate the time. You know, from I really appreciate the candid discussion regarding trail usage by all groups here. Following the discussion and presentation from the initial meeting, it seemed clear that the increasing usage and expansion of the trails is key to keeping up with the increasing population and changing user groups in the area. In speaking with local residents and other groups, the Browns Ravine Trail seems generally underutilized by the existing user groups. As a frequent trail runner, I rarely see users of any sort on those trails. The connection of the trails, as stated in the planning recommendations, has been a longstanding goal, and this particular connection seems to make sense. One of the core things from the initial discussion was that we need to spread out user groups as much as possible to avoid conflict. The conflict is always inevitable, but can be managed by you know, conscientious trail usage and education, inexperience, rules, you know, say even user groups, speed limits, things of those nature are realistically unenforceable. From a note to the safety and the comment regarding jumping, I don't think there was any intention there that would say that jumps need to be created. More so to the planning recommendations that some form of a park where activities of those sort can be created. You know, down the road, if user groups really need any form of a flow trail of that sort, that can be created, you know, in line with the community and recommendations, and, you know, appropriate signage posted. I've seen this work extremely well in other states and other areas with all user groups interacting just fine. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, I think I had said we'd go back to Colin, and then Lucy, I apologize. I think you had your hand up and somehow I missed it. So we will come to Lucy after Colin.
Hi, Parks. Colin Wood, COLINWOOD. I am a parent, Granite Bay resident. I live about a quarter-mile from the state park entrance at Douglas Boulevard. I have twin 7-year-olds that both ride bikes in the park, and I was generally encouraged by the draft road and trail management plan that recognizes the large and growing user group of off-road cyclists, including our youth in the area. Grayson, who spoke before me, asked me to clarify that he was talking about a skills park, like a jump park, something to replace the bulldozed Granite Bay jumps, and not jumps on the Browns Ravine Trail. Just to be clear on that, I'd refer to the separate Browns Ravine planning process and the kind of comprehensive statistics that Parks presented at during that planning process regarding safety and I don't have the stats in front of me, they're at home on my computer, but I believe single digit horse bicyclist reported injury incidents over the last 15 or 20 years. And then question wise to either Mr. Michaels or Mr. Spann regarding the section of the North Fork between Granite Bay and Auburn that was not recommended for the Pioneer Express Trail to be open. That kind of North Fork below the high waterline trail, what is the current status of that? Where is it located? Like how far along does it go? Does it go all the way up to Auburn? And then generally, has there been any consideration of temporal restrictions or temporal usage restrictions, meaning alternate days or a couple days a week, where that would be open to all user groups? I know that through this process, Parks has the opportunity to turn the Folsom Lake and Auburn area into kind of a regional trail destination by having a full circumnavigation of the lake on bikes. So that's great. Also, this is another question, how is Parks planning on incorporating input into systemizing and decommissioning trails in the North Granite Bay area? And I think my time's up, so thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Colin. Lucy, you're up. I'm sorry for the skipping.
Thank you, Isabel. I appreciate the opportunity to provide some comments on the conversation this evening. I'm also an equestrian user of the trails primarily. I also ride bicycles, but I choose to ride bicycles on paved trails or trails that I feel are safe for multi-use. I've been riding the equestrian trails, primarily the Pioneer Express Trail between Beeks Bight and the Avery Pond area for about 20 years. I'm very familiar with it, and I believe that there are multiple sections of that trail that are not safe for to be shared system between bicycles and horses. There are areas that are extremely narrow. There are areas that have a lot of blind corners, and it just wouldn't be safe. I also want to reiterate the comments that Marianne made earlier about lack of signage and signage that has been destroyed and removed and not replaced. And I think it would be extremely prudent for trail maintenance, both in terms of signage and grading, etc., to be included in the plan. I've also seen a lot of instances where it isn't safe due to encroaching vegetation. So again, last comment is I don't mind shared trails, but it's safety first, absolutely. There are some mountain bikers that are extremely conscientious. However, there are others that aren't and do take advantage of the lack of signage. So I hope that can be considered in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Okay, I think we have about 2 more minutes. So if there's any last, if I mistakenly skipped over you and you had your hand raised, please raise your hand now. Otherwise, we can go to our questions. I'm just searching through. I think might have had a hand go up and down again. So I just want to make sure that if you have raised your hand and you haven't spoken yet, or you would like to, that you do now, or you send a text in the chat. I just want to make sure. Is there anybody? Okay. Is there a person that hasn't spoken with the Fat Track group that would like a chance? Okay, yeah, as long as it's a new individual, that's great. Feel free to unmute. And please state your name first so we can document who's speaking.
My name is Robin Kalsbeek, Kalsbeek. I'm a resident of Fair Oaks. I really appreciate the time and all the work that has gone into this. I am a frequent user of these trails, trail runner, hiker, and cyclist, both road and mountain biking. And I want to echo the safety concerns as well and urge that the staff considers or continues to push for expanding multi-use trails for connector trails. The reason I say that is as a cyclist, I don't feel safe riding my bike on the roads, and I can't access most of the best parts of this area without taking a road. And I'm looking at just the Folsom Police Department report from 2008 to 2020. There were 3,110 injury-causing car crashes in Folsom. Of those, 6% of them involved a bicycle, 208 bicycles. We've heard about safety on the trails between cyclists and equestrians or riders. And frankly, I haven't looked, and I need to look more into it. When I was searching through here, I couldn't find any hard data, but it sounded anecdotal. So I would urge that the group tries to provide evidence that there actually are incidents between cyclists and horses. And the last thing that I would ask the group to consider when planning multi-use trails is that the encounters, it's a two-way street. It's not just a cyclist who may be unsafe. There's also a horse involved in the situation that sometimes I don't feel safe as well. So thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for your comments, Robin. So we got a message from Koo, who has another person in the family who's going to speak. So it's a different individual, and we'd like you to first state your name so we can record first and last name.
Hello, I am Koo's son. Thank you for allowing me this chance to speak. Don't cut down any more trees. And us mountain bikers can do alternate days, Monday through Friday. We ride evenings and afternoons. And on weekends, we ride early mornings. Thank you, that is all.
That's a good idea.
What was your first name again, please?
My name is Colston.
Okay, great, Colston, thank you. Okay, so I think we've given everyone a chance to raise their hand, and we are on a schedule to spend a little time. We did get quite a few questions, although I do see Wendy, and she was a registered speaker. So if it's okay, I think Wendy, you might be the person that had your hand up and down again. So I'm fine if Wendy will be our last speaker, and then we're going to go ahead.
Hi, this is Richard Slepian. I live adjacent to the.
Oh, sorry. Please unmute again, sorry. There you go.
I'm sorry. My name is Richard Slepian. I live adjacent to the Browns Ravine Trail for 40 years. And I've hiked it numerous times, obviously, in the last several years, 5-6 days a week. I've noticed that many times the mountain bikers are very courteous, but it's the few times that they're not is where this problem comes up. And if we open this trail up to a multi-use trail, we're going to have so many incidences of problems of people riding their bikes so fast that it's going to create a problem. In the last couple of days alone, I've had to jump off the trail and yell, "Hey, look out, there's a dog out there," while these bikes come flying past. And what do they say? "Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry." I'm telling you, it's dangerous. Don't let this change.
And it effectively eliminates all other users. When you make it unsafe and the mountain bikers travel too fast, equestrians and hikers can't use it. So then only the mountain bikers can use the trail. So is it multi-use at that point? No.
All right, thank you, Richard, for those comments. And we're going to move on to the questions. We have gotten a few submissions, or several, and I'm going to, there's my timer. I think we can turn the timer off. We're going to try to get through all the questions. but we may not. And if that's the case, again, we will document and share them via the website. So the first question was a question about, will we give folks a chance to participate in the user type survey? It was just really an icebreaker for our meeting. We're not documenting it or using that as you know, the input. We did a very extensive survey online that was open for several months. So, you know, the survey of who was in the meeting was just more to get a sense. I know not everybody had a chance to take it. So hopefully that's okay. We've definitely heard from many groups representing many different points of view here tonight. So I think that's the theme of the, you know, who the participants were. Question from Lucy about how long we have to comment. Again, June 22nd is the date for the draft plan. There will be a public review period for the environmental document that will be happening later this year. So June 22nd, 2 weeks from tonight is the window for providing comments. The next question I'm going to address to Jason. Is it possible to see the comments that have been submitted? There's a question from Mike. And Jason, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, thanks. It is not possible to see the comments that have been submitted through the comment tool or email, but what we're going to do is we're going to, at the end of the, after June 22nd, we're going to collect all the comments, whether they were submitted email, verbally, or through the comment tool. And we're going to be summarizing those and kind of packaging it all together. And then we're going to be sending, putting those out on the plan webpage, and then sending out an email letting everybody know that those comments are available for viewing.
Great. Thanks, Jason. The next question is from Dawn. What will happen to the newly improved bypass trail around the project, raising the dikes north of Beals Point? Will it continue as multi-use trails? I think for Jim, Rich?
I can take a stab at that. The portion of the trail north of Beals Point is a multi-use trail already prior to the improvements made. There's a section of that bypass south of Beals Point that was an equestrian pedestrian trail originally. For when the top of the dikes closed, we're going to allow multi-use on it, and the plan includes a recommendation for that short section south of Beals to implement a change in use and add bikes to that segment permanently.
Great, thank you, Jim. I've got a couple of comments, so I'm going to move. I think we heard comments and had a chance to hear those during the comment period. So I'm just going to do the questions we received. What do we mean by exploring the development? I don't know. Jim wants.
I'll take that one. I think Matt made this, had this question in his comments as well. Yeah, the language used in that recommendation regarding a bicycle skills area or a technical riding area was intentional. This type of facility is new to state parks, and we want to better understand the types of technical riding areas or skills areas that would meet users' needs while still being compatible and consistent in the context of a state recreation area. And as the recommendation indicates, it's likely a facility that state parks would not operate, but we would do so through a partner. And so we want to give ourselves time to explore what this facility would be and what type of partner we might partner with in developing such a facility and operating it.
Great, thank you. The next question is from Zachary. Out of curiosity, why are horses allowed on Middle Ridge Trail but not bikes? Let's see if it's a question of erosion. about the weight of the horse, Middle Ridge Trail. Yeah, so the question is, why are horses allowed on Middle Ridge Trail but not bikes?
I'll try that one again. Some of the use designations of our trails go back a long time, longer than my career with state parks. And that has been the designation of that trail for quite some time. I do recognize that it's a very narrow trail, and you know, we made recommendations regarding the change in use request for that trail, not to approve the change in use in the plan, and we've heard some input and feedback tonight, and we'll be considering that as we review all the comments and decide whether or not to make revisions of the plan in light of those comments. But the Middle Ridge Trail has been designated equestrian pedestrian for a long time.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question is, why is the Brown Ravine a separate process? I think we had a couple questions about that.
Again, I'll take that one. We discussed this in the public meeting we had for the Browns Ravine Trail project specifically in January. And some of the reasons for looking at the Browns Ravine Trail as a separate project, there's a long history in looking at adding bikes to that trail going back to 2000, 2001. State Parks judgment, the trail has favorable site conditions for a change in use. There's very durable soils. The terrain, there aren't long sections of steep grades. It's generally undulating terrain. And it does connect to multi-use trails on either end. And so moving forward as a separate project also allows that change in use project to progress along more quickly than if it was part of the road trail management plan. And lastly, I just say in evaluating the Browns Ravine Trail for a change in use, we did consider the entire trail system within the state recreation area and the other change in use decisions that are being made in the road trail management plan. So we did consider the context, but it is moving forward as a separate standalone project.
Great, thanks, Jim. Let's see, looks like maybe one last question. What is the planning process for non-system trails?
As some of the folks on the call I'm sure know well, there are some very dense networks of non-system trails, the North Granite Bay area and at Mississippi Bar. Rather than make judgments and decisions on each of those individual non-system trails, we felt like it was important to look at them as groups of networks of trails in different areas, and to work with different user groups in making those decisions, figuring out what people's desires and thoughts are regarding those networks of non-system trails. And some of those networks of trails, they're worthy of their own little planning project. And so rather than we wanted to make progress on this road and trail plan, and then rather than trying to push forward with decisions on these non-system trails, these networks of trails, we wanted to devote, kind of a separate individual planning process for each one of them to give them fair consideration.
Great. And actually, we did have one more. And that is, I think another one for you, Jim. Where is the below high water line trail?
So there's multiple routes of this shoreline route. When you head north from Beaks Bight, eventually after a couple miles, they all converge into primarily a single route. And it runs all the way to where the connection to the end of Horseshoe Bar Road is. That's the extent. At that point, the trail encounters a steep bluff, that rock bluff that drops down to the lake, even at lower lake levels. So in the plan, that's kind of the extent of that shoreline route as it exists now. We're certainly open in exploring how that might be extended.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Thanks everyone who answered questions. Spence, I'm just going to do a last check with you that you haven't gotten any others.
I received one question.
Okay.
Has the Browns Ravine CIU been approved?
We haven't made a final decision yet. I believe that's going to happen soon, within the next month, but we haven't made a final decision yet.
I see a couple more coming in.
Isabel, I have 2 comments that I'm dropping into the Google Doc.
Yeah, we're going to focus on the questions. See if I can
Those are in.
quickly. Could state park staff speak a bit more about how and when the non-system trails noted will be evaluated and addressed?
We don't have a specific schedule for how the different recommendations, which of the different recommendations would move forward. I would say that we understand there's a high priority for some of these areas, particularly the North Granite Bay area. And if people have thoughts on which recommendations, you know, are a priority in your mind, we're certainly interested in hearing that.
Great. Okay, another question. Why does the park keep using decomposed granite on new trails and reroutes in Granite Bay? Why not regrade using native soil?
We don't have anybody from our trail crew here. I'll just say point taken, point noted, and we'll take that comment into consideration.
Great. I'm seeing one more question. I think we have about, just to let people go right at 8, we're going to take these last maybe 1 or 2 so that we can do our wrap up and let everyone go. And again, if we didn't get to your question, we will make sure we provide answers, but I think we are getting to them all. So here's a question. Are there any plans to develop more progressive trails like Culvert? And this is in the related to previous questions about adding bike features on trails, but not brought up in the RTMP. And really it's the second question related to that. How are you prioritizing a loop around Folsom Lake for multi-use?
I might be able to speak to the Culvert Trail question. One of the recommendations in for the Granite Bay area is to really look at all those non-system routes that run through that area and work with user groups to perhaps incorporate some of the technical elements that are associated with those non-system routes. So that is in the plan right now. So I think that kind of might help to address that, looking for more technical challenges aspect of it. I'll let Jim speak to the trail around all the way around the lake. Obviously, Pioneer Express Trail from Beeks Bike to Auburn State Recreation Area has a lot of real issues there in terms of safety and sustainability. I've actually not been north of from Rattlesnake to Auburn yet, but I know Jim and I think Rich probably have been in that area, and they can speak to that. But certainly understand the desire for a trail that circumnavigates the park, but there are some real challenges in that area. So, you know, we're definitely open to the idea, but the utilization of the Pioneer Express Trail is very problematic, and we do have a lot of concerns with that.
Yeah, I just, to add on, the idea of a loop trail around Folsom Lake was identified in our general plan, recognized that. As Jason mentioned, there's real serious challenges with trying to make the Pioneer Express from Granite Bay up to Auburn into a multi-use trail. And I think we identified some of the constraints and challenges there. We're open to looking at alternate routes if possible, if it's possible to extend this shoreline route beyond the area at the end of Horseshoe Bar Road. And lastly, I will note that one of our recommendations to develop this new North Fork Trail from Peninsula up to the Olmsted Loop, we hope provides, you know, one opens up a whole new area for multi-use and provides connectivity up to Auburn.
Well, we're gonna do our wrap up here again. If there are any last ones coming in, we will put out the answers. I think I haven't seen any others. Oh, one last question. I think, oh, yes, related to the Browns Ravine. Jim, I don't know if you can see this one. Let me just, why should the Browns Ravine CIU need to be moved ahead quickly if it's not approved? Yes, approved.
So as we noted, any of the proposals, the recommendations in the road trail management plan will need additional site-specific planning and environmental review. And because the Browns Ravine changing use is being addressed as a separate project, part of that project is doing that site-specific planning and that project level environmental review. So once we've completed the Browns Ravine changing use decision, we'll actually be able to move forward with, if the decision is to approve that, we'll be able to move forward with implementing that decision after the decision's made.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. I know that folks would like to continue to possibly comment or send in comments. We're at time for this evening. If you can, please submit your comments as we've talked about via the website. And we're gonna do the wrap up of our presentation at this time. And if you can see the screen, just want to thank everyone for your participation. Next slide, Giselle. You can see that in terms of where we are in our process, Jim had talked about the schedule. So we have been building on the work that we've been doing the past year. We did do a bit of engagement that many of you were part of that led up to the development of this plan. And again, just to recap, we are in this public review draft process, and tonight's workshop with 2 weeks for additional comments. Please feel free to send those in and use the tool that we demonstrated this evening, or send emails with additional questions and comments to the address we're going to show on the next slide. And I'll mention we are moving shortly after this phase into the environmental document development, the CEQA and NEPA document that Jim mentioned for the RTMP, and there will be a public review process, a public review period for that environmental document as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Rich to help do our very final wrap up.
Great, thanks Isabel and everybody. I just wanted to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your time and participation this evening, providing all your great comments and questions. As we've kind of reiterated throughout this process, your input is critical and to the entire process and to the development of the final plan. Please remember that if you have additional questions or comments, feel free to submit those through June 22nd via the trails@parks.ca.gov email, or by using the public commenting tool that Jason demonstrated earlier. And that's also located on the Roads and Trails Management Plan for the both the Folsom Lake State Recreation Area and the Folsom Powerhouse State Historic Park web pages. Again, thank you all for your attendance and participation, and have a great night.